The Retirement Café Podcast, episode 36, How to Thrive in Retirement with Celia Dodd.
Retired or thinking about retirement? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Retirement Café Podcast. In each episode, we bring you an important conversation with insight, tips and knowledge, all designed to help you live a fulfilling and successful life in retirement. Here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner and accredited later life advisor, Justin King.
Welcome to the Retirement Café Podcast. I'm really delighted to have another fabulous guest to chat to this morning. I'm going to be talking to Celia Dodd. Celia Dodd is an independent journalist, author of a number of books, and her latest book, which came out last September, is called Not Fade Away, How to Thrive in Retirement. And obviously, our listeners want to thrive in their retirement, so it's fantastic to be able to talk to the author of this wonderful book this morning. So welcome, Celia.
Thanks for having me on the podcast.
No problem at all. So could you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came to write this wonderful book, How to Thrive in Retirement?
Yes, I'm a freelance journalist. I've been a freelance journalist for over 30 years, and I used to write celebrity profiles for the Times and Independent and features about sort of relationships and so on. One of my highlights was interviewing Lou Reed once. But recently I've started writing books and retirement. As I was approaching retirement myself, I started to have conversations with people about it and realized that a lot of people don't feel very happy about retirement, and I wondered why that should be. And so I talked to all kinds of people about the mistakes they'd made, the things they'd done right, the things they'd done wrong. And it occurred to me that there was the space for a book which kind of took away the fear of retirement, if you like, or tried to take away the fear anyway, because I do think it has got quite a bad image. Yeah.
So do you call yourself retired currently?
No, I'm not retired. I feel I've gone through phases of near retirement. As a freelancer a couple of years ago, I didn't have so much work, and I was beginning to think, is this retirement? And I was thinking about volunteering, but I think like a lot of people, I couldn't commit to volunteering because I had all this other stuff to do. So I was in a limbo and I had to decide, am I retired? Am I not retired? And I decided I was not retired, so I wrote the book.
So that's quite fascinating in itself. And I think if you have the flexibility or the skills to be a freelancer, a consultant, a portfolio type of person that can still get some paid work in those years that typically, I suppose, we used to get pensions at 60 or 65, and you kind of then started to move into that idea that you were retired. But those lines have been blurred now, haven't they?
Very much blurred. And I think, a lot of people don't want to retire ever. Some people want to, as you say, combine a bit of part-time work with volunteering, with all kinds of different things. And I think it's wonderful that there's so much choice and so much opportunity now, but also with choice becomes some tough decisions. And I think it can feel quite overwhelming, the different choices on offer and the different expectations that people have of retirement. And I suppose that's why what I wanted to explore in the book, how different people manage that. And, retirement is a very, very individual thing. It's different for everybody. And what I really hoped was to help people work out what was right for them, what might really work for them. And perhaps to make them see that you can make mistakes. It can be a process of trial and error, and that can be really exciting and good fun. It's a time of great opportunities, as well as a very challenging time, I think, for a lot of people.
Sure. Now, I mean, obviously, you in your book that I've read some chapters. I haven't read the whole thing, but I've read, flipped through it, and you've got some great insights there. But tell me about the kind of personal insights that possibly you've picked up of what. I don't know. I mean, again, of course, it's only a perspective and a point of view. But do you have any kind of experience of what you believe an unsuccessful retirement looks like?
Yeah, very much. Well, I think that's what partly prompted me to write the book. mean, partly my own dad had a very sad retirement. He really struggles when he gave up work and became very, very depressed and never really recovered. And of course, you come across people like that all the time, of people who really can't cope without the status of work or without the social networks and all of the, the things that work brings. But by the same token, I think it's really hard to predict who will have a really good retirement, because some people, the idea is that if, a man with a high status job is not going to have find retirement easy. But in fact, I came across loads of men who really were enjoying their retirement and really, making the most of it, just enjoying being able to say yes instead of saying no to things. One man said to me, "It's great, I can do all these things that I wasn't able to do before." So there was one man in my book in particular who had been he'd been a TV producer, worked 14 hours a day, but he really was getting loving retirement in a really inspiring way, just enjoying the simple pleasures of life, being able to walk up and down on the beach, being able to have great food, being able to go, see his friends, just really enjoying himself.
So I'm interested in this perspective, of course, when you've got a family member, you're like, someone close to you as your dad who you feel that struggled in retirement. What advice, I suppose, or with your knowledge of that, what were particular his struggles, and how could our listeners possibly, if they are faced with similar struggles, what kind of strategies could they employ that would hopefully make their retirement, more fulfilling or successful than maybe your father's?
I think probably he hadn't thought about the future. I think he hadn't planned, or I think work really was the be all and end all to him. And I think hopefully people now are a bit more aware that it isn't the be all and end all, that there are lots of other things. I think work-life balance is, people have taken that on board now. And I think really what my father didn't have was social networks, which were not to do with work. And I think some of the recent research shows that that's one of the most important things. If you can build up social networks before you retire, doing things that you enjoy doing anyway, whether it's a walking group or a book group or anything, these act as a kind of bridge between your old life and your new life. So I think that's one thing. And I think carrying on learning, I think, if only he could have found something that he wanted to carry on, learn, whether it was a sport or whether it was a language or whatever, all of these things, just staying curious, getting out there instead of just sitting at home thinking about the past. I think the key is this is the future, and you could have 30 years ahead of you of a fabulous life with lots of changes and lots of new opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think, we operate here at MFP. People come to us around money issues because that's why they're, the traditional financial planning. And we spend an awful lot of time, in essence, creating what we call a life plan, a financial life plan. And we ask them some deep questions, about, if you were turning out the light tonight, and weren't waking up the next morning, who did you not get to be and what did you not get to do? And those questions allow people, and I think it's easier when it's facilitated, i.e. there's someone else asking you the questions rather than you asking yourself. But it's not a bad thing to do if you're asking yourself. But if we can find out what deep desires that someone would have to make sure that 30-year retirement is deeply fulfilling in whatever way it is fulfilling to them, then it creates some purpose again. And from purpose, of course, we start to take action.
Yes, and I think, finding purpose is obviously the big thing. It's the big challenge. And I think there are all kinds of ways that you can set about finding a new purpose. And I think, as you say, there's quite a lot of deep soul searching required. But perhaps it isn't just sitting, staring into space thinking, but actually, as you say, talking to other people. I hope in my book, sort of reading about, there are 60 other people I interviewed about their experiences of what worked for them, how they found meaning. But, some people find it by taking time out, going and, having a holiday. Some people find it by trial and error. there was a man in my book he was a policeman, and he went to Nepal to volunteer after the earthquake, and it really didn't suit him. He really didn't enjoy it, and he had an accident, had to come home, but he was determined to go back and try again. And he did. He tried again and found a different kind of volunteering, which suited him much better. And he learned a lot from that experience. And there was I think trying out different kinds of work perhaps that suits you. And there was a woman in my book also who she moved somewhere different when she retired, and it was a disaster. She got really depressed and found that really that was lack of social contact. So she ended up moving to a co-housing project. So I think there's all kinds of ways that you can find what has meaning for you and what works for you, and a new way of life perhaps that really suits you.
Yeah, sure. And I suppose there's, your previous book or your earlier book was about empty nesting.
Yeah.
And I get the impression that, these are empty nesting, the children leave home, and the transition into retirement are fundamental shifts, aren't they, in your life? They're kind of, definitely closing of chapters, I suppose, if we use the analogy of a book. And the other interesting thing I would like to maybe explore with you is how do couples do that? I mean, obviously couples relate to, the empty nesting. They're going to react to that in a one way. And then all of a sudden, if you've both had careers, or maybe one of the career has been bringing up the children, and one of the career partners has been out to work, all of a sudden you aren't doing that role any longer, and neither of you. So all of a sudden you're those relationships, that close relationship's going to shift, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think to see it positively, I think retirement can be the sort of shake up that a lot of couples need, if you've been together a long time, because as you say, it demands that you take stock, and it demands that you almost reinvent your relationship, or think really hard about it. And of course, best way to do that is by talking to each other. And I think a lot of people find that you can think, oh, my husband doesn't like this, or my wife, she hates going Scottish dancing, or whatever it is that you like doing. But in fact, I think when you really sit down and talk, you can find that you do like doing things, or you're ready to try out doing new things. And I think, again, studies show that the transitional period, as you say, can be quite difficult, but after that, retirement can really improve marriages. And of course, part of the transition is that territory thing. So whoever it is has been at home has to adjust to having another person there in the house. And I think you've got to work out your territory. And there was one man, a former teacher, he's very worried because he likes listening to music all day, and he knows his wife doesn't, and they don't know how they're going to get around that when she retires. And the house is very much his domain, and they've got to work out a way that it's going to be shared. And I think that all those things are tricky, but I think having those discussions can be really, really productive, rather than just carrying on as we have done for years when we've been working or whatever. So I think I always think that transitions are very positive. They're challenging, but they're also offer all these fantastic opportunities.
And I for retirees who are lucky enough to be in a partnership or a couple, then of course they can be supported by each other in doing those new classes or new volunteer opportunities or traveling or what have you. There's the opportunity to support each other, isn't there? And of course, I suppose, therefore, then for the solo retiree, we talk about, and it's not just a retired problem, but I mean, loneliness and isolation seem to be a bit of a problem in the UK or maybe throughout the world, etc. How do people deal with that? Because of course, once you've lost your work community, then there's another challenge there, isn't there?
Yes. And I think, building up other social networks is really important. I mean, I think a lot of people find that who've lived on their own very happily for years when they've been going out to work, it is a big change, not necessarily for the better. when you're not going out to work. And so you've got to really create your own new daily routine, if you like. I did speak to a man who actually, he really, really does enjoy being on his own, but he has developed a very strict routine. So he goes to the gym 3 times a week in the morning at 9 a.m. and then he goes to Cafe Nero and he has his coffee, and then he goes to volunteer teaching in a school. So it's almost like a new working routine that he's got worked out. And he does love it. He loves living on his own. He's very happy with his own company. But I think it does take an adjustment. And the woman I was speaking about earlier, who moved to the co-housing, I think that's a fantastic way for single people to live with other people, but retain their own independence and their own way of doing things. I mean, you don't have to be, you can live on your own within lots of other possibilities for being with people in those situations. And I think that there's room for expansion of those.
Absolutely. So I think, yes, getting, the message I'm hearing is getting involved in community is delivers not only what the additional help that you're giving the people that you're helping, but of course it delivers a huge amount to yourself as well.
Yes, I think getting out of the front door, going back to my father, if only he'd got out the front door, every time you go out and, and meet other people or try new things, do a course, do a bit of volunteering, even just going to the library, you might see a leaflet about something that you'd be interested in. And one thing leads to another, and helping other people is a really good way to help yourself, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I think as a key message I got from the book and from chatting to you this morning, that that's absolutely right, is to take advantage of opportunities and keep meeting people and staying connected and doing something that you find fulfilling and worthwhile. And probably if you do find fulfilling and worthwhile, it's probably delivering a huge amount to the people that you're interacting with as well. So
yes, and for many people, this is the first time you can do something that really matters to you, that's worthwhile to you, because after all, we've been working for all these years doing something that probably matters a lot more to somebody else. And this is our time to really find what resonates with you. And I think it helps everybody. It helps you. It helps everybody else.
Fantastic. No, that's a really great message. I commend it to the house. Before we wrap up, Celia, can I ask where people can find out more about the book, where they can get it, if they want to get in contact with you, or where do they find out a bit more information?
Well, I've got a website which is www.celiadodd.co.uk. The book is available on Amazon or the Waterstones website. Basically my website is where you can get in contact with me. There's contact details on there. So
wonderful. Well, I think I can highly recommend, as I say, your book, How to Thrive in Retirement. That's fantastic. We'll put the notes where they can find out more about you, and the Amazon link maybe for the book, and also the empty nesting book. I think that's another crucial thing for people who are going through that. So I think that's great messages that you've managed to pass on with writing these books. So well, thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been really fascinating talking to you. Thanks for all your great work in those areas. Thank you, Celia.
Thanks very much for having me.
What a fascinating discussion. If you'd like to find out more about Celia and her books, then please check out the show notes at the retirementcafe.co.uk, where you'll also find some useful links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do leave me a review or subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, either on our website or on your preferred podcast player. Until next time, this is Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Café Podcast with Justin King. To find out more, you can find us online at theretirementcafe.co.uk.